the Appalachian Trail. Why I wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail was because when I was 8 years old, I went to Mount Blue State Park, and I saw this presentation on a guy who hiked the Appalachian Trail, and then I asked my dad if I could go to another one because the guy that did the presentation said that a girl who he was hiking with was having a presentation around the next week, so I went with her. I saw all her gear and just what she used, and then me and my dad went on a overnight, and we met two thru hikers. I asked them a bunch of questions, and when I woke up in the morning, I said I wanted to hike all the Appalachian Trail. And I also wanted to do this to increase support for my local food bank. They were having low donations, so I thought that I could help out. What is the Appalachian Trail? The Appalachian Trail is a national scenic trail that extends over 2,184 miles through 14 states, starting at Sparrow Mountain, Georgia, and ending at Mount Katahdin, Maine, and that's going northbound. But the hikers call it Nobo. And going southbound is starting from Mount Katahdin, Maine to Sparrow Mountain, Georgia, and the hikers call that Sobo. Now this is what it was like state by state. Georgia, and that is 76.4 miles, and we started March 21st, 2013, and it was cold. Right here is a picture of me and my dad on top of Sparrow Mountain. As you can see, we have a lot of layers on, and it was icy going to the top of the mountain. And over there, as you can see, that is a picture of the first night on the Appalachian Trail, and it was snowy. Now this North Carolina is 95.5 miles, and Tennessee is 287.9 miles, and the Tennessee miles include the North Carolina-Tennessee border, since we walked along that and the Great Smoky Mountains. And here is a picture in the Great Smoky Mountains, just over there. As you can see, it's very beautiful, and we had great weather down there. And the highest peak is Clingman's Dome, and it is 6,642 feet. And there's this observation tower on the top of it, and it was a beautiful view. The fog kept rolling in and out. It was crazy how fast it moved. And we're still in the same state, but this is North Carolina. There was an ice storm. It wasn't ice when it fell down, but right when it hit you, it just turned to ice. You were like icicles by the time we were done going 5 miles. And we ended up stopping short that day, but the next day it was like an ice machine exploded all over the trail. There was tons of blowdowns, and it was harder to get across them because they had ice on them. But when we were finally at the NOC, which is the Nantahala Outdoor Center, there's this river, and they soaked my feet in it, and it was beautiful. It was like a summer day. It was like the day before it never happened. And this is Virginia. It's 550.3 miles. It is the longest day on the Appalachian Trail, and it was cold, and it rained, and had more rain. And as you can see in this picture, it was raining, and you can see how it was pouring, and that was just the beginning of the day. And it rained mostly every single day in Virginia. Not the most fun thing in the world. And there's this thing called the Virginia Blues, is when you get sick of Virginia. Because it is so long, even when you're halfway through it, you want to get out. Because that is very long for half of it, for even just one normal-sized state on the Appalachian Trail. And we are still in Virginia, and the Shenandoah National Park was beautiful. It did not rain there, and we just had beautiful views, beautiful everything. And here is a picture of our first bear we saw, and we were and we were glad to see one because my dad and I wanted to see a bear in the Great Smoky Mountains, but we did not see one. But we saw plenty of deer. And there's these type of gas stations where you could get some short stops for resupplies and things like that, and it had delicious cheeseburgers and milkshakes. Now this is West Virginia. It is only 4 miles. It is a really short stay on the Appalachian Trail, the shortest. And what is so special about West Virginia is that it has Harper's Ferry in it, which is the mental halfway point on the Appalachian Trail. And it has the ATC Conservatory on it, which is basically the main headquarters for the Appalachian Trail. And as you can see, I was hiker number 371 in that picture. My dad was 372. Now this is Maryland. It was 40.9 miles. And that is a very short stay on the Appalachian Trail too. And what is so special about this place is that it had the first Washington Monument built by the people of Boonesboro in Maryland in 1827, 21 years before the monument in Washington, D.C. was built. And it had a great view on the top of the mountain. But it still rained that day too. When we were still in Maryland, we hiked the wrong way because my dad and I went the wrong way for 2 miles. I thought it was the wrong way. But we kept going for the 2 miles, and then we finally realized it. And we went back 2 miles to where we should have started, and we ended up hiking the same miles for that day, but we ended up hiking to the shelter right before we were supposed to spend the night at. Same miles, but the 4 miles did not count, really. And that has the Mason-Dixon line. That basically means the Mason-Dixon line is the line where the north and the south are divided. And I was happy just to be one step closer to home because I was finally in the north again. I just felt like I was one step closer to finishing it. Now this is Pennsylvania. It's 229.6 miles. And the thing that Pennsylvania is notorious for is its rocks. Well, it has a lot of small rocks that can just beat up your shoes. Your feet are tired by the time you get out. But it was super flat. We hiked 70 miles in 3 days to get a mail drop so that Papa could get his part of poles since my dad's poles were broken. And that has the real halfway point. As you can see in that picture, that is a real sign for the halfway mark of the Appalachian Trail. And this is pencil. It had the half-gallon challenge, which means you eat a half-gallon of ice cream. And my dad did that, but I still contributed part of it. I ate a pint of ice cream. And there's a lot of trail magic and trail angels in that state particularly. Trail magic is when people who you do not know, but you do know them kind of after, if they do a thing where they are there, but they give you sodas. They give you sodas, chips, and many more different things. And this is New Jersey. It was 72.2 miles. It was the last full state we hiked fully. And the thing about this was that it did rain, but not as much as Virginia. And the mosquitoes were horrendous. They just swarmed us, and it was like they bred them there. And every time we stopped, they just came out and bit us. It was not fun because we could not take that many breaks. And we had 100% DEET. And that wore off in 30, 40 minutes because the side of the trails were wet and we sweated. But the special thing about this picture is that over there is the longest boardwalk on the Appalachian Trail. And they put some spray where bugs that bites do not like, so they do not go there. That is a boggy, swampy area, and there were no mosquitoes there. It's beautiful. And this was in New York. We hiked 62.9 miles. We were very close to Connecticut, around a day away. It did rain, but not as much as Virginia, and the heat got to us. Well, not necessarily the heat, but the humidity. The humidity just made everything worse. And the reason why I stopped was because I had cellulitis in both my toes, and that was a picture of after a week of treating my feet. It looked much worse on the trail. And this is New Hampshire. We hiked 30 miles of it, and then again, that is not all of New Hampshire, and we were tired. But our first day again after starting, we hiked New Hampshire around a month after we left from New York, and we met this guy named Jacko. He was from Australia, and he started with us on the first day for the first time, and he started with us on the second day for the first time. So it was pretty neat just catching up with him again. And these are the top 10 questions asked. When did you start? I started March 21st, 2013. How much does your pack weigh? My pack weighs around 20 to 30 pounds. It just depends how many days of food you have in it and how much water you in it. Those are the two heaviest things. And not the gear, so it's surprising. A lot of people would think that. And what do you eat and where do you get your food and how often? Well, I eat a candy bar and a protein shake and some hot chocolate mix in there to have a lot of calories, because it is hard to have a lot of calories for breakfast, because hikers just want to get going fast. And for lunch, I had pepperoni, Ritz, and a couple spoonfuls of frosting. It had a lot of calories, and even though I ate that, I still got tired at around the same time at the end of the day. But calories are a really important thing on the Appalachian Trail. And for dinners, I had a lot of freeze-dried stuff like taco sides, rice sides, mac and cheese, ramen noodles, and more stuff like that. And for snacks, I had fruit snacks and 2 candy bars for all day. And where did I get my food? I got it at most grocery stores I could. Grocery stores like Hanford that's near us, and just other type of ones like that. And we also resupplied in gas stations. Those were not the best places, but we got what we could, so we still had enough food. And how often? Every 3 to 5 days. It just depends on where you are and what section you're hiking. And where do you sleep? We sleep in a shelter. And like you saw in the first picture of when it was snowing, imagine a 3-walled house, but with the front wall of the house missing. That's what a shelter is, and it has a wooden platform on it. And we had sleeping pads and a sleeping bag to sleep in. But they were down, so they were very warm, and they kept us warm enough. And where do you go to the bathroom? Well, normally we went in the privies, which are the main places to go in the shelters. But if we were places like in the Smoky Mountains, we had to, basically, there's no privies, and there was a shovel on the side of the shelter. Use your imagination. And how often do you shower? I showered every 3 to 5 days, but that's because there's really no showers in the middle of the Appalachian Trail. But we did get a lot of natural showers, meaning it rains so often, we got wet anyways. And how many miles a day did we hike? We hiked at around 12 to 15 in the beginning. And near the end we averaged around 20 to 25 miles a day. Because it was so flat, we could make up miles. And what animals did you see? Well, we saw 2 bears. We saw many deer. We lost count after over 15. and we saw a lot in the Shenandoah National Park, and we saw a lot of the normal animals, birds, squirrels, chipmunks, and any other ones like that. And what was my favorite thing? My favorite thing was hiking with my dad, and the other thing was meeting all the people. And my least favorite thing was either the rain or the mosquitoes. I still